What is health and wellness coaching? Here in the US, the vast majority of us have access to health coaching through our employer, EAP, maybe through a physician office, community center, other options. But why do so few of us take advantage of the opportunity, with less than 5% tapping into this incredible resource? Why? Most likely it's because we don't realize the impact a coaching session with a nationally board certified coach can actually have. Maybe we've tapped into someone on Instagram who calls himself a coach but lacks the credibility. Or maybe we've accessed a call center coaching option with our insurance company. Or maybe we still have nightmares about our high school gym teacher and think it's just the same thing. What if we could listen in on a real, live, unscripted session with a nationally board certified coach? Welcome to the latest episode of the Catalyst Health, Wellness, and Performance Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Cooper of the Catalyst Coaching Institute, and today's episode is one you've been asking for. It is a completely unscripted, real-life coaching session involving Susan, the coachee, and Liz, the nationally board certified health and wellness coach. After they're finished, we'll pause for a few seconds, and then you'll get to hear them pull back the curtain on what just happened as they discuss the coaching session and what maybe they would have liked to see done differently. This is the real deal, folks. And there's a good chance you'll garner some insights about your own life journey as you walk alongside Susan in this session. I definitely did. If you've been thinking about pursuing your certification as a health and wellness coach, our next NBHWC approved training kicks off April 9th. If that's too soon, there are two others teed up for 2022 that you can tap into. And all the details are at catalystcoachinginstitute.com. As always, if you want to talk it through, if you got questions, if you're not sure how this whole thing works, what the process is, reach out to us. Results at catalystcoachinginstitute.com, and we'll get some time on the phone to chalk it through. Now, let's listen in to a real, live, unscripted coaching session with nationally board certified health and wellness coach on the latest episode of the Catalyst Health, Wellness, and Performance Coaching Podcast.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Liz.
So I'll be your wellness coach today. Would it be helpful for me to kind of go over what to expect from our call and then we can get started?
That'd be great.
Okay. So it's just a conversation about your wellness. Again, that could be anything from exercise, stress management, life balance, nutrition. So covering a wide variety of wellness topics. And my role as your coach is just to facilitate this conversation by asking questions, offering suggestions and resources if you would find that helpful, and really just be an accountability partner and support person for you and whatever it is that you want to focus on within your wellness. Know that everything we talk about is 100% confidential. So everything stays between you and I. And lastly, a little background on me. I've been in the fitness and nutrition industry for about 20 years in a variety of different roles, from personal training to group exercise, yoga instructor. Then I've got a few certifications in nutrition. However, if there's things outside of those particular areas of your wellness that you would rather focus on, know that you are the driver of this experience and you get to pick what's important to you. Before we get started, do you have any questions for me?
No, that sounds great.
Okay. Well, I'd love to hand the conversation over to you and just get a current state of your wellness and maybe start with the areas that you feel are going well. And then we can shift to areas that you might like to put more attention towards.
Yeah. Thanks, Liz. So I would say things that are going well are work. And I would say nutrition and exercise is going well. However, there's always room for improvement. But I have a really good schedule for exercise, and I'm really focusing on more fruits and vegetables, which has been my goal since last fall, and that is working well. So yeah, so as far as exercise and nutrition is concerned, I would say I'm doing pretty good. In fact, better than I've been doing probably in a while. So I'm excited about that.
That's great. So it sounds like you've really been focusing in on nutrition, exercise. You found a schedule that really works for you. And I can hear in your voice, you're really excited about it.
Yeah, it's fun. I started a strength training group, back last August. And I go on Tuesday, Thursday mornings, and it's the highlight of my weeks. Nice. The people, it's social, and it's a really excellent workout, and it's the perfect amount of strength training per week. So yeah, it's really changed everything about my physical self, if you will.
Yeah. And it's so great to be able to find an exercise routine that you like, that feels good in your body, but also has a community component too.
Yes. Yes.
That's awesome. So it sounds like there's a lot of things that are going really well, a lot of things to celebrate in your wellness. What are some areas that you would like to put more attention towards?
Yeah, I think two things that come to mind. One is stress management reduction. I think just with the world today, with everything going on, it can be a little bit overstimulating, overwhelming in everyone's life. You know, COVID, the pandemic. I have 3 children and a husband, and we just got over COVID throughout the house. And then with that comes some isolation. And isolation is hard for an extrovert, me. So that's been interesting. And then just, the balance of a family life, unpredictability. I now have a child. It's a lot of transition. I have a child who is in Athens, Georgia in school. And then I have 2 kids here I'm still taking care of. And just balancing it all. And then at the same time, trying to be present for it all. I think that's the key, is making sure that I'm present for it all at the same time.
Yeah. So I hear a lot of transition is going on. And I mean, with having 3 kids and a husband and let's be honest, 4 kids. But with being, getting through COVID, I'm glad to hear that you guys are all feeling better. But yeah, if you're an extrovert and having to, kind of isolate yourself for that a period of time. And then also too, it's a stressful time. It's an unprecedented time right now. And in that time, also balancing 3 kids that are in different aspects of their life and trying not to, it sounds from what you're saying, is trying not to think too much about the plan, but staying present in the moment. So you're not thinking about, okay, where do we got to be next, and where who's got to go where, and what's happening next. But it sounds like you're wanting to be able to be in the space with whomever it is, with there's all kids, 1 kid, 2 kids, but really just being present with them. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes. And I think in addition to being present with my kiddos or with another person, it's being present with myself.
Mm. Yeah.
Where you're not always, because I'm also in school, so I'm balancing that too. So where you're not always thinking of the next thing, like, okay, what's the next thing on the agenda? Mm-hmm. How can I get there? How can I make this happen? Yeah. That kind of thing. I've fallen out of a routine, which I do often, but I've fallen out of a routine of finding that quiet and that mindfulness.
Okay.
To settle my physical being, really, where you feel a little bit of peace,
Okay. Well, first of all, my hat's off to you. You've got 3 kids, a husband, you're working, you're going back to school, you're making time for exercise, you're being mindful of nutrition. I mean, you're killing it, Susan. You're doing a lot of amazing things, but it sounds like that present piece of just taking a moment to not have to worry about what's coming up next, but really just be in the moment. When you look back at past experiences where you said you had kind of a routine that allows you to feel present and just be with yourself, what did that look like?
Life was very different. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I love that question. What has changed? Like in I guess all of those things. And I think some of it is just that maybe all 3 of my children were under one roof. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been a big transition. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I try to think of how did I get peace before? Life is so incredibly different than it's ever been, even this year to last year. And meaning, oh my gosh, like we could go into all kinds of things. Like, I lost my dad last year, and, I've ramped up school this year, and my daughter moved and she's in Athens, Georgia. We all have this stuff, right, going on. Like we all have things going on. I'm just grasping for how to settle in, if that makes sense. How do I settle in so that I can kind of get a handle on, like I said, a little bit of quiet before there weren't so many things going on, if you will.
Yeah. So it sounds like just the nature of your life has gotten busier. You got transition and busyness kind of all happening at once.
Yes.
So does it seem like it may not be looking at what worked in the past, but almost like looking at what could work now?
Absolutely. Okay. Yes. Yes. Because things are very different than they were in the past. Very different.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned you've been thinking about this a lot. Is there anything that's kind of bubbled up for you that as you kind of think about what this being present and kind of this practice or routine could look like?
Good question. I think I'm going to have to process for just a minute. Does that make sense? So could you kind of reframe that again for me? Because I think I've been thinking about the past and you just flipped it for me.
Okay.
But can you maybe ask it in a different way or give me a little bit something to help me with kind of how I can do that? Because I think that could really be impactful, just that shift in perspective.
Okay. From what we've talked about so far, it sounds like it's not really so much looking at what's worked in the past, but almost like kind of figuring out what's going to work now. So would it be helpful for me to offer suggestions? Is that what you kind of mean? Or brainstorming together about what this could look like or giving you some ideas?
Maybe brainstorming together would be helpful. Yeah, I would really appreciate that.
So what are some things when you think about having, I guess, what are things that calm you? What are things that help to ground you, to center you? If you're kind of thinking out loud, like, is it a meditation practice? Is it reading? Is it like keeping a journal?
In the past, interestingly enough, it has been scripture, spirituality. Last night I was actually looking up some mindfulness techniques. I haven't really used that in the past, but I'm wondering if that's where I am now.
Okay.
Like almost ground zero, where I really have to stop, like physically, mentally, put on a meditation or mindfulness exercise for 10 minutes and really focus and schedule it or keep it flexible. I'm not sure. Typically, though, when I keep things flexible, I don't do them. So that's one thing that comes to mind is the mindfulness practice. Another thing that helps is listening to podcasts. What are your ideas?
I like what you came up with of the meditation, mindfulness, the podcast. And it sounds like you like things that are almost, from what you're saying, things that are kind of guided.
Yes.
So things that kind of walk you through. There's things that can be grounding, like there's a gratitude journal, writing down 1 to 3 things that you're grateful for the day. That just gives you a moment to kind of sit and reflect on things. Also, too, there's a lot of journal prompts out there that you can access that will allow you to kind of think about, even just a simple question of writing down what things help calm you, what grounds you, that type of thing. I like, what else? Reading can be helpful if you're reading things that are maybe like something that's like short passages, like your scripture that you mentioned, things like that, or like a daily affirmation book that you could find, or even there's apps that will deliver a daily affirmation to you. Music can be really helpful, whether you're just kind of taking a moment to enjoy a cup of tea or coffee or whatever have you, and listening to something like music that calms you or uplifts you. Breathing exercises, as simple as just inhale for a 4 count, exhale for a 4 count, let your mind and your body kind of catch up with one another. That's also kind of like meditation, but something that you could kind of just access as you need it throughout your day, like kind of little like mindful grounding breaks, if you will, that you take when you start to feel like maybe you're getting too far ahead of what's coming up next. So those are just some ideas I kind of was thinking of. Do any of those resonate with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the music is something I do, but I think when I'm kind of thinking through, as you shared all those great ideas, was that I guess I don't have I like your idea of writing down a couple of ideas,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what calms me? I know music calms me, for sure. Scripture calms me. Meditation, deep breathing definitely calms me. I mean, and just having those three things even somewhere where I can see them. And then I think I love, like, one thing you just mentioned was the gratitude journal.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love is even today, you asking at the beginning, so what are you doing well?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think too, when you get so crazy busy, that instead of thinking about the gratitude piece, like, what do you feel good about, or what are you proud of, or what's going well,
Mm-hmm.
you're just constantly thinking, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to fix?
Mm-hmm.
How do I need to, and I think that could be very powerful too, is incorporating gratitude into my week.
Mm-hmm.
So really those four things: music, breathing, meditation, and gratitude. I mean, I know those four would be on my list.
Okay. So it sounds like you've got a couple things that resonate with you and things that you kind of already knew about yourself that help. And then the gratitude thing of, yeah, you're right. When you're busy, we kind of look at the end of the day, what we didn't get done. Right.
Yes.
Like, I know I do that where I'm like, oh, here's the 5 things. So flipping that into, what did you get done? Look at that first, and then look at what needs to be done for the next day, but acknowledging like your wins first, and then your opportunities for the next day that you can, you'd like to put on your list of things that, you would like to get done. So kind of like focusing more on more being, less doing, so to speak, of like, hey, here's all the things I did well today, and not going straight to the things of, I didn't get all this stuff done. You know what I mean? It's natural to, I think, for us to, when we're busy, to look at all the things that aren't getting done. But I like what you said about stepping back and acknowledging what is going well.
Yeah. And I love that idea. I just, where you just said the wins,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so incredibly huge, because there are wins every day, and really focusing on those.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of things with the music, the breathing, the gratitude practice, meditation. So what would this look like in your day or week? Like, how do you see these things kind of folding into your schedule?
I think what I'm going to do is write them on my bathroom mirror.
Okay, I like it.
I don't know that I want to set, I mean, maybe I should. I'm trying to think, and should, that word. Mornings are crazy, but then middle of the day is also a really good opportunity. But then the wins and the gratitude could come in the morning and at night. I don't know. I'm going to kind of have to figure out a routine, if you will, for when I might do these things. And I'm not sure when I might do these things.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of what we talk about these calls are t-shirts, not tattoos, right? You're trying stuff on, seeing what fits, making adjustments, and knowing that maybe as you start to play with these, maybe it's, the meditation is really helping, or the music isn't working quite as much, but I love the gratitude journal. I think you're going to, as you start to work through these and try them on, I think you'll start to see which ones really support you. And I also, it feels like having a couple options to choose from, you kind of allows you to meet yourself where you're at. Like maybe you're wanting something that's more like a more breathing meditation type of practice, or maybe you're looking for something where you'd like to write something down. So I think having a couple of those sounds like it allows you to choose what's going to work for you in that moment. And it's not as rigid. But you also mentioned too, earlier in our conversation, that if you allow it to happen too organically, then it almost doesn't happen. So knowing that about yourself, does it make sense to choose, at least have some structure around it? And I don't want to push you one way or the other, see kind of where your thoughts are with creating a little bit of structure around this new routine you're looking at for yourself.
Yeah. It's a good point. I'm not sure. Honestly, like I think about my mornings, my mornings are not really good. They're great for music. And so maybe because I'm taking care of our dogs, and then I'm getting lunches ready and breakfast ready and all that for the kiddos. So I'm thinking that would be a good time to make sure that I have that music that fills me, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. The morning time music. And then probably midday is the best time for me to do some kind of meditation or mindfulness practice. Mm-hmm. Typically, I have time midday to do that because I exercise also. Well, I exercise typically, my strength training's in the mornings, and the other I typically do in the mornings or in the afternoon. But midday would be a good time to do some kind of meditation. And then really nighttime would work well for the gratitude journal, because it's the end of the day and it's time to reflect on, okay, what went right today? Mm-hmm. Typically I'm doing schoolwork at night, but there's nothing wrong to say that I can't, or there's nothing to say that I can't take 5 minutes to reflect on the good things. And I could also incorporate it even into our dinners with my kids when they all happen together. Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like they kind of looking at morning, midday, and then evening kind of little grounding, peaceful check-ins with yourself. So music in the morning, as you're making lunch and putting and getting breakfast and all of that together. And then midday, having some sort of breathing work or mindfulness work or meditation. And then end of day, taking some time to acknowledge what went well, and even bringing that to your family at family dinner. Let's all go around the table and talk about, whatever that is, 1 to 3 things that you're grateful for that went well that day. I think that's a really good way to kind of tie it into your whole family experience as well. So when would you like to start this new routine?
Tonight.
Okay.
I can do a journal conversation tonight. We'll see how it may not go well with my teens. They may look at me sideways, but it's something I can definitely do myself and try it with the family.
Yeah. Do you foresee any challenges that might come up that would keep you from doing this kind of morning, midday, evening kind of grounding work?
Just my schedule, depending on if it gets away from me. Mm-hmm. But I think if I can keep it kind of like how you just described, morning, midday, evening, and not a time, I think it could definitely work, and just make sure that I, think through. It doesn't have to be some big 20-minute something. It's just a 10-minute. And even if it's just a very short 5-minute meditation, mindfulness, it just taking the time to do that. And knowing that the more I do these things, obviously, the neuroplasticity piece of it, the better I'm going to get at it, so that I can slow myself down a little bit to be more present.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like anything is something, right? Like even whether it's 1 minute or 10 minutes, just making sure you're creating some sort of time for you to take a breath, to ground, to stay in the moment. And once you start to create that routine, it does become easier. So what would you say you're most excited about with this routine?
All of it. I'm excited to see if it helps me be more present. I think because the other thing is I think when our brains are always going, we're missing stuff, and we might be missing, I don't know, but we're just missing things in our life, and just want to slow down. Yeah. I'm hoping it will help me slow down and be more present.
Yeah, it sounds like this is really important to you.
It is extremely important to me. Yes. And I just don't want to, I think about sometimes, it's almost like you get carried away in the wind, and there's so much wind, and there's tornadoes everywhere right now, and there's snowstorms. Proverbially, or, kind of metaphorically, if you will, everywhere. And I want to be grounded. I want to be able to stand and be where I need to be, and not get carried away in the wind.
Yeah. I think I really like how you've kind of figured out the pieces that are going to work for you. And I love how you picked so many different ways of being grounded and different ways of trying to have like a present practice, if that's even a thing. But I think we're making it today, a present practice. But, I love how you made, the morning is a little bit more, got a lot going on. So it's hard to maybe do a meditation then, but picking music to help you in the morning to ground you, and then using your midday time where maybe it's a little more quiet in your household or your office or wherever you're doing your kind of mindful meditation piece. And then the evenings, using that as an opportunity to reflect back and share that with your family, and just really reflect back on the things that went well and acknowledge your wins for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're ready to start this tonight.
I am. I'm looking forward to it. So this is a win today.
Yes. That was a test, Susan. You passed.
That was a test.
Well, it sounds like you have a really great plan in place, and just wanted to ask you, what kind of your biggest takeaways from our session today?
Yeah. So many takeaways. Just what I just stated when you asked, I don't know if you asked why it was important to me, or what I'm going to get out of this. I think, really having that visualization of being solid and not being taken away by all the distractions and stuff going on in the world. And, also I like having different ways to practice mindfulness and to ground myself. Mm-hmm. And then that huge shift in really thinking about the wins at the end of the day, like that perspective shift versus, which I'm sure a lot of us do. I don't know, but versus like, okay, I've got to read these chapters and I didn't get these 6 things done today, right? Like instead, okay, what did I do well today? Mm-hmm. And give myself a pat on the back for that, and recognize the growth and, and what's happened that day.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited for you to try this on. And again, just know that this is, experiments. You're just trying things on to see what works, make adjustments as you see fit. End of the day, this is your plan, and it's about you and what's important to you. And I'd like to talk with you, and maybe, what do you think, like 2 weeks to a month from now, and just kind of see how you're feeling about what we talked about today?
That sounds awesome. And then I'll be able to tell you if I'm going to get that tattoo.
Perfect. The present tattoo.
I love it.
Well, great. Well, I will reach out to you, and we'll schedule our next call. And thank you so much for taking time out for our session today.
Thank you so much, Liz.
You're welcome.
Excellent job. Excellent job. And I was chuckling a little bit at the beginning when we were talking about, because for the listeners, this is always confidential. And Liz did a good job of setting it up that a coaching session like this is confidential. It's just between the two of us. And I'm thinking our listeners are like, but thousands of people are listening to this. So how are they doing this? But with that said, thank you for doing that. To me, that's kind of a lot of pressure to be knowing people are going to be listening to this. But Susan, you did a great job of just laying it out there of what's really going on. How did it feel to be coached? How did that process feel for you? What was the gut telling you while you're doing that?
It was wonderful. I think for me, it was definitely I was being heard. I felt heard by Liz. And, I liked two things that stood out. One was the reframing, right? Like not looking back at the past, but okay, what do you need right now? What do you need present wise? And having that like aha moment, if you will, of, oh, I keep thinking about the past, but it's not the past, it's the present. And things are really different. So how can you change things now? And then the other thing I love was the nudge that Liz gave me of, I know you want to be flexible, but, maybe you do want to add some structure. And that was hugely impactful because it helped me to really kind of visualize when I could put those things in and when it would work. So that was awesome.
One of the things that I was fascinated by was your voice tone, your affect, your audio affect changed start to finish. As you started, you sounded like I'm tired. I'm kind of up to here. I'm not sure. And at the end, it sounded like I've got this plan and I'm ready to go forward and this is going to be cool and I'm going to start tonight. And it wasn't just you had a plan, but the affect associated with that plan. Did you sense that? Did you feel that?
100%. I mean, and I think some of that too is, well, Liz is amazing. And I think part of that was the shift in from negative to positive, which Liz really helped me do. Just from the very beginning, that first statement, I thought she was going to ask me, so what do you want to change? Or what are you thinking about doing? You know what I mean? And then Liz, when you said, you know, what are you doing well right now? I mean, I was like, flabbergasted. Like, whoever asked you, what are you doing well right now? I mean, I'm going to use that here moving forward as a coach, because you just don't hear that, right? Like, no one asked you that. And that shifted the energy, my entire energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the other thing, and then I want to tap into Liz's thoughts here a little bit, but Liz didn't force you in a direction, but you mentioned the nudge. By the end, it felt like, at least what I was hearing, you have a really specific plan, and I think you feel pretty good about it.
I do. I feel wonderful about, I mean, I really do. And it was funny when I heard her like nudging me, I'm like, you know, like I didn't want to be nudged. However, okay, let's think about this. And it was extremely helpful. Yeah.
Awesome. Liz, how do you feel things proceeded? What went well, to use your same question? And then what were some things that maybe you would have tweaked a little bit?
I felt, well, one, Susan was just so great to talk with, because I think it's always hard as a coach to not be like, oh, I know how you feel. Like, I'm busy too. Like, it's always hard. And I've been doing this for a while and you're still kind of like, oh, I know I've got a lot going on too. So I resonate with all the transitions she's happening, all of the things that were going on. So I think it was really easy because she was so open to the process to talk about, you know, the strains that she's finding with the transitions and with her family and school, and she's got a lot on her plate. So it's just, we have a client that's willing to really go there and open up. It makes your job as a coach a little easier just because they are so receptive. So Susan was just an awesome person to coach. I think the things that would have done differently, I felt like at the end, we kind of already summarized it. And then I asked her what her takeaways are. I don't know that I needed to do that because we kind of already talked about it. We knew there was a morning, midday, evening routine. We asked what the challenges were and how to work around we identified the things she's excited about. So I don't think that I needed to, again, ask her about her takeaways. I think that was a little redundant on my part. I think I would have just left it after the challenges. I would have summarized it and then closed the session. So I think that's something I definitely felt like it was kind of like asking her the same question again, but a different way. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would have changed that. The reason I do ask what's going well is people, especially your first call with a client, they'll just be like, well, let me tell you everything. I have this, I have that. I'm not, I don't eat well. I don't do this. So I want to get people out of that frame of all the things that aren't going well. It's like, let's tap into what is going well. And sometimes people will be like nothing, but then they talk about, well, I am a good mother or I'm a good sister, or I'm a good employee. And I think you need to hear yourself say those things about yourself, and not a lot of people ask you at the end of the day, Brad, what do you like about yourself? Susan, what went well today? We usually always say what we can't, the things we didn't get to. And I think of this Tony Robbins quote that he had, if you ask a negative question, you're going to get a negative answer.
Yep.
So why not shift that, especially when you're coaching people? A lot of times people come to you as a client, there's a lot of shame and they're very upset with themselves. And I find that if you can get them to at least acknowledge one positive piece in their life, they tend to lighten, their voice tends to lighten. And they do get caught off guard, but I don't think it's a bad thing to take a moment to acknowledge what's going well in your life.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, the questions we ask ourselves in so many ways drive our journey. One of your go-to phrases, I've heard you use it before. I love it. Susan jumped on it. T-shirts, not tattoos. Walk us through what you mean by that. I think it's an awesome concept, and I want people to hear this.
So it's about that experiment mentality, right? So I've led a lot of teacher trainings for people to train them to do yoga, right? To teach yoga. And a lot of them will kind of think, well, I don't know if I want to do it this way. So we used to always say it's a t-shirt, not a tattoo, meaning you're just trying it on, seeing if you like it. Maybe you want a different size. Maybe you want a V-neck, maybe you want a crew neck, maybe you want a different color, but you get to make those adjustments where a tattoo is permanent, right? Like once that's on you, it's on there forever. You're going to see it every day. And I think that just allows people to realize, oh, I can just try this on. I'm not married to this. I don't have to do this forever. Things might go well, things may not. Giving the client permission to, one, make the adjustments, and two, to just like lean into it as an experiment and know that there's no, like, we're not holding your feet to the fire, that you have to do it this way, that you're the driver of your own experience and you can make adjustments whenever you want. So that's what I mean, t-shirts, not tattoos. And I think it brings a little lightness to it too, for the client. So they, sometimes they chuckle, sometimes they don't. But I think it does just allow people to realize that they have control over their plan, and that just because we've talked about it and they're getting it sent back to them, perhaps in an email or something like that, that they have the power to adjust it whenever they need to, because you're the expert of your life, right?
Well, it's such a powerful visual. I have a feeling that the one thing above all else that people are going to remember when they listen to this podcast is they're going to say, oh my gosh, like I can use that in my life. I can try a t-shirt in these new areas or pursuits or things I'm trying or adding or taking away or whatever it might be. It's not a tattoo. So I love that. One of the things I wanted to point out, and then just get final thoughts from each one of you, is folks listening, if you had your stopwatch running, that coaching session lasted about 28, 29 minutes. The amount of progress, the amount of not information, but the amount of movement that took place in Susan's life in less than 30 minutes is powerful. So I just want to reemphasize that, because I know with our coaching certification, when people do their first coaching session and they're going through it and they're like, oh my gosh, like all this stuff happened in 20 minutes or 25 minutes. It's truly amazing when it's done well, what can happen in that period. So with that, Susan, any final thoughts? And then Liz, I'll let you close the door for us on this.
Yeah, I always love working with Liz. This is my first time being coached by her, but I think, Liz, you have such amazing, like you were saying, Brad, with the t-shirt and tattoos. And then the other word you used were the wins, right? And I love how you have those types of phrases that you can really, like, I'm going to be thinking about my wins today. So I really appreciate that.
Love that. Liz, you want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah, I think, Susan, I appreciate your kind words. And I think whether you've been coaching for 3 months or 30 years, this is something that you're never going to be perfect at. And I think that's why it's such a fun and passionate profession to be in, that every call, every session, whether it's the first time you're working with someone or you've been working with them for years, it's always going to be different. And you just learn so much from working with people and how to, I think, leading with the heart and wanting to be supportive and holding space for people is probably the number one most important thing as a coach, even because you know that anything you ask and anything you reflect or offer up is just going to come from a place of authenticity, of true support. And I think that's what makes coaching such just an amazing profession to be in. And it's just something that you always just constantly are working at and improving upon. And I think that's what makes it so fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you two. This is really, really valuable. Thank you again to Liz and Susan for their willingness to provide our listeners with an authentic, unscripted, real, live coaching session with a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. Thanks to you for tuning into the #1 podcast for health and wellness coaching. Next week, we welcome Dr. John Randolph, psychologist, board certified neuropsychologist, and the author of the new book, The Brain Health Book, Using the Power of Neuroscience to Improve Your Life. Now it's our turn. Our turn to take that step, to move forward, to make the most of every opportunity to be a catalyst. This is Dr. Bradford Cooper, the Catalyst Coaching Institute. Make it a great rest of your week, and I'll speak with you soon on the next episode of the Catalyst Health, Wellness, and Performance Coaching Podcast, or maybe over at the YouTube coaching channel.